Good morning, Mr. Dugudo.
Good morning, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well.
Excellent.
Andrew, you can also say good morning to our guest speaker.
Okay, yeah, one moment.
Good morning, Andrew.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well.
So
Awesome.
Chef Gentile, Andrew Ramos is a student who is in our Hospitality and Tourism SHSM program.
Oh, wonderful.
So he's looking forward to having a career in the culinary arts.
Yeah, well, I'm planning to work at a hotel.
Oh, good for
Hospitality
you.
and tourism, yeah.
Yeah. Try to make my own business.
Good for you, Andrew.
Hi, Robbie.
Hi, sis.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. So,
Miss Castro. Should I call you Miss Castro?
yes, Miss Castro.
He's all like, he's trying to make fun of you, like a little bit, poke you on the side. He's not
I
used to
know.
calling you Miss Castro.
Castro.
So for those of you who don't know, Chef Gentile is actually a sibling of Miss Castro on our staff. So they're actually brother and sister.
Believe it or not.
That's right.
We look like twins, don't we? Right? With all
Uh,
Rob's hair.
just imagine her without hair and he was just spitting image.
Oh, we don't look the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is exciting. Thank you so much, Rob, for coming today.
My pleasure. I'm ready to go here. Got my pasta ready, almost ready.
Oh,
It's too bad we can't actually eat what you make today
yeah.
I know.
or
There's-
smell it or anything. We could just watch with our
I
one
know.
sense, right? We have
You
No
gotta
one watched
watch,
it.
but then you have to try it at home. That's the idea.
That's right.
That's right. This is a learning opportunity.
That's right.
Exactly.
For sure.
And I got your recipe. So Chef Rob sent me the actual recipe he's going to make today. And I could share it as well if anybody wants it.
Sure. We can definitely post it after as well.
Good. Awesome. So it's 9 o'clock. People are going to start to join.
Yeah, we'll just give people a couple more minutes to join. I see there's still
Morning,
some people
Elena.
coming in.
So I'm just going to share this story as we sort of wait for people to filter in. A couple of years ago, Miss Castro and I had an opportunity to go down to Buca and meet with Chef Rob, and he had a class of us down there and talked about the industry and his love for food and everything. And so he was kind enough to make pizza for the entire group. And so, so they had this homemade pizza. And I just remember they were like in love with it. So we come back to school and I had a student that I had that year. And then that student came back the year after into my same class. And I said, how's it going? We were in the same class last year. And, what was your favorite thing about like my class last year? And he said, literally, when we went downtown to eat Chef Rob's pizza, that was my favorite thing about the entire year. I'm like, what? I go, what are you talking about? Because remember when we went downtown and we went to go see Chef Rob and he made us that amazing homemade pizza? I said, that's your favorite thing about the whole year. And he said, absolutely, 100%.
Memorable experiences, man.
Memorable experience. So that stuck with him for like an entire year. And so that was fully his most favorite experience out of my class that year. And I'm like, awesome. That's so great.
That was a good day. You talked to them and you showed them what it was like a little bit into the kitchen. Everybody got to see, and then you filled their bellies. Of course, it was a good experience.
Yeah, no kidding. They loved it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really nice.
That's what shapes kids' minds. I mean, it's food experiences.
Sure.
Like I have a garden in the backyard, and that's kind of exactly what I try to do with my daughter is just have her around food, have her tasting things constantly. And she's a difficult eater already to begin with. So it's like, good times.
Rob's trying and praying, crossing his fingers that his daughter Clarice is going to be, a foodie one day at least.
Yeah.
And
I mean, when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was eat and try things that were different, right?
Right.
Like it's just out of genuine curiosity, and I just loved it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's important, right? To sort of have them experience it young.
Any
Okay,
passion, right?
yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
So, Mr. DeCudo, should we sort of get started, or are we still waiting for some more people?
I think we can get started.
Yeah.
So I can start us off with a prayer and then I can pass it over to you, Ms. Luke Cabral. Does that sound good?
Sure, that
Okay.
sounds good.
Okay, so please join me in the sign of our faith. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Dream big. Loving God, we love to dream big about our future. We love to be filled with excitement and enthusiasm about all the opportunities that lie before us. We pray today that we will have the confidence to know that no matter what our dream, we will be able to realize it if we work hard at attaining it. We pray that we will be surrounded by supportive people who will offer us encouragement and praise, and that we will make wise decisions that will provide us with the opportunities we need to help us reach our goals. God, we know that you want us to attain our dreams. Grant us the ability, confidence, and support to make it happen. Amen.
Amen.
St. Edmund Campion, please pray for us. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. And I will pass it along to
Thank
Ms.
you.
Luke Cabral.
What a wonderful message. Thank you.
Thank you.
So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. We'd like to welcome Chef Rob Gentile with us this morning. Morning, Rob. Thank you.
Everyone.
And he has been affiliated in the past as head chef, chef director, and partner of the King Street Food Company, including their collection of restaurants of Buca, Osteria, and Anteca, Buca, Yorkville, Barbuca, and King Street Food Company. He has also been a judge on Canada's Food Network series Wall of Chefs and Top Chef Canada. I know he's ready to go for us, so I'm going to turn it over to Chef Rob, and thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. This is a different world we're living in. I'm doing cooking demos from my home and you guys are all watching. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot easier to do it from the comfort of my own home. If I was to come to your classroom, I would have to lug all my stuff in there, and it's quite the big ordeal. So hopefully you get something out of it today. The idea is to show you guys a really, really simple recipe that I want you to try. Okay, I've passed on the recipe to your wonderful teachers here, and feel free to tackle it and try it yourself. When I was your age and I was in high school, I sort of was, constantly trying to experiment at home. And Miss Castro, who's my sister, can attest to all of the go home for lunch. I don't know if you guys do that right now, but I used to go home for lunch and I used to cook everything I could possibly think of. And I might have even burnt the house down a couple times, but it was experimentation twice. Experimentation and having fun with it. Okay, cooking is not meant to be stressful, and it can be, if you take it too seriously. But I'm going to show you guys a really cool recipe to make fresh pasta from scratch, right? And one of those things that is kind of like, perceived to be really, really difficult is making fresh pasta from scratch. And it's not. When I was very, very young, I would stand in a milk crate in the kitchen and help my grandmother make gnocchi and all sorts of easy things to do. Think about it. If Nonna can make fresh pasta from scratch, anybody can make fresh pasta from scratch, right? So you guys can all do it. And I encourage you to try it, okay? So I'm going to show you guys a little recipe. It's a pasta pomodoro, okay? Simple, fresh pasta with tomato, but I'm going to kind of give it a little bit of a twist and show you guys how to make pasta with just flour and water, okay? So in the recipe that you guys have, there's a pasta recipe. This is semolina flour. You can get semolina flour at most grocery stores. It's not something that's super rare, but it's semolina and water. And what it is these little magical tools. It's a scale. And whenever I say to somebody, measure out your ingredients, they get confused by it because not a lot of people have scales at home. I don't know why. It's like a chef thing. But if you have a scale at home, you can get them anywhere. You can measure out your ingredients extremely accurately. And that's the idea, right? So the idea is to do 400 grams of flour on a scale, right? And 225 grams of water. That's it. No eggs, no nothing like that. And this is just something I'm going to show you guys that's easy to do. And you don't have to dump the flour out on your counter and make a big giant mess in the kitchen, which a lot of us probably have done before. There's a really easy way to do it, right? So I got a stainless steel bowl. I'm going to dump my flour in, okay? And then I'm going to dump my water right into it, okay? And this is a flour water recipe. There are different recipes that incorporate, of course, whole eggs or egg yolks or things like that. Start at the basics and work your way up, right? Once you're good at something like this, then you start to get into the more complex, egg doughs and things like that. I got a beautiful fork here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix that all together with the fork. Okay. And it's in a bowl. It's not on my countertop. And by doing this, I'm keeping everything nice and clean. Okay. As you can see, countertop's nice and clean. Okay. I mixed it. And what it is, it's kind of like all these little crumbly pieces, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my hand and I'm going to start squishing it all together, right? Super easy. Okay. And what's going to happen is it's going to become a dough. And once it becomes a dough and it's out of the bowl, can you guys see me there? Then I'm going to take it out into the counter. Okay. And the reason why I like to do it like that is because it keeps everything nice and clean. And that's one of the most important things about cooking is to be able to work clean, especially if you're going to ever get into the industry and become a professional chef or even, a hotelier or something along the lines of hospitality. Working clean and working organized is like, the sooner you get a grasp on that, the more ahead you're going to be, right? It's huge. It's a huge part of being successful, right? So what I'm going to do is, I'm almost there. If you guys have questions, okay, feel free to fire them off into the chat box. And I'll answer them because I can see them on my end. Okay. All right. Here's the dough. Okay. So now I'm going to put it on the counter and finish kneading it. You guys can see me, right? Okay. So you see how I've not made a mess? Okay. So nice and clean, and it's like, oh wow, he's making fresh pasta, and he hasn't made a giant mountain of flour. And you can do the same technique with an egg dough. So you're just going to basically make a mound of make a hole inside the flour and inside the bowl. Drop your eggs, and with the fork, you're going to start to incorporate the egg into the flour. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is knead it. So once it comes together, right, I'm kneading it. And what you want to do is knead it. There's a little technique to it. If you go to YouTube and you watch, dough kneading action, there's all sorts of ways to do it. I'm basically pulling forward with my hands and pushing with the palm, pulling forward with my fingers and pushing with my palm. And I'm turning it as I do it. Okay, you guys can see that action there. Okay, and what you want to do is you want to keep kneading that dough until it starts to get nice and smooth. And it's all incorporated, right? There's no little bumps left or anything like that. And you have a nice smooth dough, right? So I'm going to actually do this fully because I eat everything I make here, so we throw everything in the freezer. I have all sorts of stuff. What was the most technically difficult dish I ever made? Oof. Lots of technical dishes. I think to answer that question, once you start getting into a cooking technique called immersion circulating or sous vide cooking, you're dealing with a hot water bath and you're dealing with an exact degree of temperature to cook something at. That is something that is interesting and challenging to grasp, certainly. Okay, sous vide cooking, to answer your question there. Okay, so look, there's my dough. Okay, it's gotten nice and smooth. Okay, I kneaded it. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap that up in saran wrap. Okay, I'll show you guys right now. Okay, wrapping it up in saran wrap. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw that in the fridge overnight. Okay, and so what's going to happen is it's going to rest. And the reason why you want that to rest is because you just worked it and you kneaded it and you activated all the gluten. So the dough is really, really tight right now. So all you need to do is just let it rest. You can do it overnight, or if you want to make it same day, give it at least a couple hours and it's going to relax. It's going to soften. And then you can make your pasta from it. If you go to try to make the pasta right away, your dough is going to be really tight. It's going to fight back on you. Okay. So we're going to let that rest. And so I made one yesterday. Okay. Okay. I made a small batch and I'm going to show you how I made all that right now. Okay. So this is cavatelli. Same way you make gnocchi. It's a super simple technique. Okay, I saved one piece so that I can show you guys how I did it. So that ball of dough I made yesterday, I took it out of the fridge this morning. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it, I cut it into 4 pieces. I made pasta already before we went on, right? And you basically take it and it's come to room temperature. It's relaxed. It's nice and soft. It's like Play-Doh. Okay, real simple. So simple. You guys can do it like every day and practice it. And it's like, I just made that dough in what? Less than 5 minutes, right? Okay. So on the cutting board, okay, I'm basically using my fingers. And this is where the Italian technique comes into play, because every nonna knows how to do this. And this is the very first thing I ever learned when, you know, being in the kitchen with my grandmother, right? So I'm basically rolling that out, rolling that out, rolling that out until I get it the thickness I want it to be. Now, the thicker your rope of dough, the bigger your cavatelli you're going to be. Okay? See that little guy? Okay, so you can, I like them small, but you can make them big if you want them to be big. Right? Okay, so that's nice and long. And then you're going to take a little cutter like that, or you can take a knife, whatever you want. And I'm going to cut them into little squares. Okay, you guys see that? And then basically, once I cut that rope, okay, there's a beautiful thing called a gnocchi board, okay, or a cavatelli board, okay, and it's got all these little ridges on it, okay, and so basically you take that little piece of dough that you cut and you get the gnocchi board and you put it on the gnocchi board and you grab your thumb and you go like this, okay, see how I rolled that? Show you guys another one, okay. On the gnocchi board, you grab your thumb or your finger, whatever you want. I like my thumb, and you push it forward. And you let it roll. Okay? You see that? So on one side, it's got like an indent. On the other side, it's got all those little ridges, right? And if you don't have a gnocchi board, you can use a fork. Okay? You put the fork on the counter, you take the gnocchi, and you roll it down the fork. Okay, the only difference is it's going to take on the shape of the fork. See those little funky bumps, right? And it still have the cup on the other side, right? So Or you can take any kind of kitchen tool. You can take a grater. These guys are fun, right? If you have one, you put that on there, you push down, and it takes the shape of the grater, which has now all these little spikes on it. Okay? So I'm going to go and rip all these off because we're going to cook them right now for real. And we're going to make an awesome sauce. Right? So we're going into the springtime season. You know, there's all sorts of fun ingredients that are going to be available. So, you know, I encourage you guys to start learning about seasonality and start experimenting with food, right? Don't be afraid to make mistakes, right? I can't tell you how many times I, you know, cooked and burnt something, or cooked and something was like surprisingly delicious. Like all of a sudden you were like, one of the things I did, I remember when I was a kid, was I made a vongole sauce. So that's like a clam pasta, right? And I don't know if my sister remembers this, but I made a vongole sauce, and I didn't have white wine, and this is like in high school, but I had red wine. I don't know why, but I had red wine, and so I made a clam pasta with red wine, which is you don't do that. Like it doesn't work because your sauce turns out pink, right? Instead of like white. But it was so good, right? It was so good. And I still remember to this day, I've never done it again just because it's so weird. Like, why would you do it? But I remember being a teenager and making this clam pasta with red wine, and it had a pink sauce. And I remember eating it just being like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever made. It's the weirdest thing I've ever made. That's what cooking's all about. It's fun, right? Okay, so pasta's ready. See that? So I got it on a tray with some parchment paper. And what I did was I dusted it with a little extra flour. Okay. And these can be made in advance, and they can be frozen like that into the freezer. And then once they're frozen solid, you can pick them all up and put them into a Ziploc bag, and you have fresh pasta frozen, ready to go. And they can come right from the freezer right into the hot boiling water and in any sauce you want. Okay. My sister says everything you made was great, even mac and cheese. I used to experiment with mac and cheese. I still do, actually. Mac and cheese, if you guys ever make mac and cheese, it's one of the greatest things ever. It's, you know, mac and cheese. So don't have some major high expectations of it. But one sec, my phone just rang. So if you make mac and cheese and you buy a roasted chicken, these are our chef tips, okay? You buy a roasted chicken from the grocery store and you pull the meat off of it and you make a mac and cheese and you toss, I'm getting hungry thinking about it, and you toss the pulled chicken in with the mac and cheese and add peas, green peas, game changer, okay? Game changer, you're welcome for that tip. Okay, we're gonna make a sauce now. And basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna boil that pasta in the water here, okay? Super simple. Now, pasta water, whenever you're cooking pasta water, you wanna add salt, right? Make sure your pasta water's seasoned. We don't mess around with things not being seasoned. I got my pan on the flame. Okay, I'm gonna add olive oil. Right? Good amount of olive oil. Okay. And then I'm gonna have a clove of garlic. I'm gonna smash it quickly. Okay. Now I'm gonna throw it in the pan and I'm gonna roast the garlic in the pan. Simple, right? Okay. And then I'm gonna take canned cherry tomatoes. Now, if you can go to the grocery store and find, here, I got some cherry tomatoes like that. Okay, they make an awesome sauce too, but you gotta try to make sure they're in season and they're grown locally, right? And so if you're using a fresh cherry tomato, throw them into the hot oil and let them all sort of break on their own. They're gonna break, they're gonna smash up, and they're gonna become their own sauce. Or there's nothing wrong with using a can, okay? Nothing wrong. So it's just, you got to make sure you get the good stuff. Don't get anything with like pre-seasoned, you know, oregano or any kind of weird ingredients in the can. It's just tomatoes. That's all there is in there. Okay. So I'm going to roast the garlic in the oil quickly. Okay. And I'm gonna have pasta for breakfast today. How many other people are eating pasta for breakfast? Okay. Not that many lucky people. Okay. So once my garlic clove, what I don't want to do is smoke the oil. So I turn the heat down. Okay. So you got to manage the temperatures and make sure olive oil doesn't get too hot. Keep the flame on low. One of the things I used to do when I was a kid was not really manage temperatures. And so I always smoked the oil and burnt the pan. You don't keep the temperature low. Okay. So I roasted my garlic. Okay. I added in the tomato, right? I'm going to add a little bit of water. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit of water. Okay. And always clean up as you cook, right? Keep everything nice and clean. That's how we do things. Okay. And basically, I'm going to cook that out now. And that's the beginnings of my sauce, right? Easy? Yeah? Everyone can do that, right? Super simple. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to season it. Salt. Okay. A little bit of pepper. Okay. And as that cooks, I'm going to go with my little spoon and I'm going to break all those tomatoes. Okay. So that they become a nice sauce. Okay. I'm breaking them, breaking them, breaking them. Okay. Okay. Easy, right? Where are all my questions? No questions, guys? How many people are going to attempt this at home? Everyone? One sec, I just have to get something here. All right. So, next. Okay. I have a lemon in the recipe. It says orange. You guys can use whatever you want. I'm basically going to take, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So with a peeler, I took the rind off the lemon, okay? And I threw the lemon into the sauce, and I took a couple bay leaves. These are bay leaves. I have a little bay leaf tree upstairs. It's a bay leaf tree. You guys can get them at a garden center. They're pretty awesome. I like gardening. I have like fig trees. I have zucchinis that are seeded upstairs. And so I got this bay leaf tree. It's not that big. It's about that big. And when it starts to get too big, you pick the leaves off. You can dry them or you can use them fresh. And it's awesome. It's like fresh food in your own home. Okay. So that's cooking out. And as you guys can see here, okay, I almost got a sauce ready to go. Okay, that's it. And so the lemon peel is going to give it this wonderful aromatic flavor. So typically, Pomodoro sauce is basil and garlic, right? And that's amazing. One of my favorites. So what I'm giving you is kind of like a little bit of a different take on a Pomodoro sauce, right? Where I'm using citrus rind and I'm using bay leaf for kind of like an aromatic, right? So it's going to cook for about 5 minutes, 7 minutes, right? Basically, all you're going to really do is cook it until it's nice and thick, right? I like to break all those tomatoes up so they're not a whole. And they're slippery little guys. I like to break them all. And you'll see why once I make that sauce. Okay. I'm going to turn the temperature all the way to low, and I'm going to cook my pasta. So the reason why I like that paper on the tray is because I can pick it up and I can put the whole thing right into the pasta water. Okay, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. My water is boiling. Okay, pasta goes in. Okay, and I got this wonderful little spider, so I don't even have to dump the water into a colander in the sink or anything like that. I can just pull it all out from here. So pasta's in. Okay, and what we're going to do is bring the water back up to a boil and cook that fresh pasta out. It's going to take maybe 3 minutes because it's so fresh, it cooks really quick, right? And all we're going to do now, guys, is make a sauce. Here, I'm going to get a plate. Make a sauce. Okay. And we're going to basically plate it. Okay. And I'm going to finish it with pesto. And I'm going to finish it with some nice, sharp, aged ricotta. Okay. And it's done. Like, how quick was that? Right? I did that in 10 minutes. Okay. So again, cooking is easy. You just have to practice like anything in life. The more you practice, the better you get at it. If you want to go and become a astronaut, you can do it, right? If you want to become a chef, you can do it. Sky's the limit. It's so easy to do. It's not easy to do. It's just that it can be intimidating, but it's only intimidating for the period of time that you're learning. But then, it becomes this exciting thing, and you're always learning and you're always getting better at things. And that's the way I kind of experienced cooking, is that, once I went into a professional kitchen, it was extremely difficult and challenging. But then once I started to get better at things, it started to become easier. So every time I try to accomplish something in life that's difficult, it can be stressful. But then I always try to remind myself, okay, just learn it, stick to it. You're going to get better at it. And as long as I enjoy it, it's going to be something I'm going to stick to, right? So should we use particular pasta with certain sauces? So yes, pasta can be one of those things that matches up really well with other sauces. Short noodle, long noodle, they all kind of have their place. I'm just tasting it to make sure I have enough salt. I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay. So short noodles typically work really well with chunky things, and longer noodles typically work well with things that are a lot more silky and more of a sauce, if that makes any sense. But there's exceptions to that rule. It's quite complicated. Okay. So now what we have here is our pasta. It's almost ready to go. And our sauce. Everybody's good? Yeah, we're having fun. Or how hungry are we right now? Right? You're sipping on coffee, you're thinking about breakfast that you didn't eat. And now, as soon as the camera goes off, you guys are all going to just chow on something, anything you can find, right? Okay, pasta's going to go in the pan. Okay. Audrey. Come. Okay. See what I'm doing? I'm taking the pasta right out. With the spider. Right? I'm freezing because Audrey's taking a picture of me.
Bye.
Okay? Now, I got them all out. Beautiful. Water's off on the heat. Fresh pasta into the sauce, right? And then I'm going to turn the heat back up. and I'm going to cook the pasta in the sauce. This is a very important step. Always finish the pasta in the sauce. Don't put the pasta in the bowl or separate and then put the sauce on top. Okay? Pasta loves cooking in the sauce. There's something about it. It just becomes one with the sauce. Okay? And I'm going to cook that out. Right? Would you add an egg dough to change the flavor? Yeah, so egg doughs definitely have it at home, but there's nothing wrong with buying amazing products too that are already pre-made to make your life a little bit easier. Okay, this is basil. Okay, it's Italian basil, and I'm gonna put a spoonful of that over top. Okay, and then I'm gonna take this beautiful aged cheese, and I'm going to grate. Okay, and I'm using this side of the grater because I want the cheese to be shards. Okay. Okay. And you'll see what I mean as soon as I pull the plate up. Okay, see how there's like chunks of cheese? That's just how I wanted it to be, just because of the side of the grater I used. You can put it on fine if you like, right? So at the end of the day, that's my breakfast. Fresh pasta, basil, pesto, and some of that fresh aged cheese, okay? And I did that, guys, in less than 15 minutes, okay? For real. So, and it's not because I'm like, have this magical superpower. Yes, I'm going to do it faster than you'll be able to do it, but it is very, very easy. Anybody can do it. And that's the idea here.
What about my breakfast?
My wife's asking for her breakfast now. So any questions, guys? That's everything. I mean, yeah, it's time to eat now. What is your favorite store-bought pasta? Okay. Store-bought pasta. I like getting the artisan style pastas. So the ones that are made, how do I explain it? There's the mass-produced pastas, and then there's the ones that are kind of made, you know, small batch by small producers. You'll be able to tell because they're a little bit more expensive. But I mean, they're also probably in a pasta section of the grocery store that's elaborate, right? I like to play around with all those fun pastas because some of them will actually be dried egg noodle pastas, which are really cool. But you'll also get all the really fun shapes that aren't typical of the mass-produced pastas, right? So just play around with the differences. There's nothing wrong with a, you know, mainstream pasta like an Unico or Di Cecco or something like that. But there's also a place for like the, you know, Rusticella di Abruzzo is also one brand that's a little bit more artisanally made. Try it.
But if we had to go to the grocery store.
All of those are available at the grocery store.
Oh.
Yeah, you can get good pastas and more cheaper mainstream pastas at the grocery store.
Should we should we look out for a particular ingredient, something that maybe we want to make sure it does not have? Remember, I had asked about how do I find something that's like, you know, just tomatoes in a jar and still doesn't taste good. Everything that I was buying still didn't taste like Rob Gentile's lunches when I came over your house. And you said, make sure you buy passata, right? Without, what was that?
Without sugar or acid?
Acid, I think it was.
It's an acetic acid or something like that.
Yeah, I make my own now I have my own now, so that's why I forgot. So
They add preservative to tomato sauce a lot of times. And that preservative makes them very tart. So it's kind of like one of those things.
And I'm telling you, it really, really helped. But now I make my own, so I have it without the acid naturally.
The one that you make, the one that's pure tomatoes is always going to be the best one. Make sure it says tomatoes and basil. That's it. Okay.
Amazing. Yes, I agree. We should definitely get a longer lunch break, Gary. Mr.
All
Mr.
because of me, you guys are going to have a longer lunch break. Now you guys got to cook in the school. You guys have a kitchen in the school?
We do.
Yes, so maybe Gary can make us pasta now.
Ooh, okay.
There you go, Miss Castro. Here, Mr. DeCuto's gonna make us
Nice.
a pasta dish for lunch.
I'm very excited. So,
I want to see those pictures.
Yeah.
Mr. DeCuto, I have experience as a sous chef. Grew up right next to my baby brother, by the way. He's my younger brother, 4 years, and I was his sous chef. So if you need me, Mr. DeCuto, I am there for you.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Miss Castro. Chef Rob, can I kind of moderate some of these questions that are coming in and see if you're able to respond? So Andrew is asking what restaurants you've worked at.
So I started Buka way back in 2009. And before that, I worked for Mark McEwen for 10 years. So I worked at 1 North 44 Biomark. But I pretty much, all the Italian side of things, all the excitement I have around ingredients and everything like that, that all came from my upbringing. I mean, when I was a kid, I was constantly in the garden. So, being from an Italian family that had come first generation from Italy, we had everything growing in the backyard, and just being a child and being around that. That's why I always have a garden every year. My sister grows an awesome garden, and having that experience of learning where food comes from and ingredients, it doesn't need to make you a chef, but it gives you an incredible, what is I'm looking for? It just sets the tone for life, right? It really does, because food and ingredients, no matter whether you want to become a lawyer or doctor or business of some sort, it should always be a part of life. And in Italy and in Italian culture, it's part of life. Like, you'd be surprised on how many people who are business professionals and nothing to do with the hospitality industry can cook like amazing food, right? That's all because they understand it and they've been raised that way, and they know that just a few simple ingredients would make the most incredible dish. It's all about those ingredients that you're using and how you're putting them together, right?
Speaking of incredible dishes, Elena is asking, what was the most technically difficult dish you've ever made?
Technically difficult dish. I would say we had this one dinner at the restaurant, and we had a chef come from Italy. He was a 3 Michelin star chef, so very fine dining cuisine. And we did a citrus salad that was composed of 5 different types of citrus fruit. And what we did is we segmented each type of citrus fruit. So if you take a lemon and you cut the top off and the bottom off and you peel it with a knife, there's all of these segments in there. And so we removed all of those sort of triangular shaped segments from every single type of different fruit. And we had an exact number of segments of each fruit on the plate, along with probably 6 different garnishes. And then we finished it with a Canadian olive oil. And I think we had to do 100 or 110 of these dishes. And to assemble all of that was definitely challenging. It was like 15 chefs to do that one course. So I'll give you an idea of something that can be very, very challenging and very complex. But it doesn't always have to be that way. It all depends on, what you like and what you enjoy.
Wow.
Would you think that, Rob, working in the restaurant industry and working in the restaurant, providing for, say, patrons in the dining room, is that more difficult than what you would say catering? Was that a catering event that you did with all those chefs?
Well, I mean, they're different. Caterings are typically, when large groups of people, I mean, you can cater for 10 people if you really want. I mean, now these days with COVID and everything like that, catering tends to be, less than 10. But catering can also be thousands of people, right? So it's just very different. In a restaurant, you're feeding groups of tables that come typically less than 10 people, and they're coming at different times and they're ordering different things. So it can be very complex, where catering is typically a menu that's pre-curated for large groups of people, right? So it's just a different formula. It's just a different way of putting things together, right? There's different nuances about either, right?
Thanks, Chef Rob. Question from Miss Luke Cabral. Do you have different fresh herbs all year round?
Good question. Yeah. I mean, all year round. I mean, I got chives that are just coming up in the backyard, and mint. Those are the two things that are annual, that come back every year. But I have seeded, I got basil seeded, I have coriander seeded, I got dill seeded, I have fennel seeded, which are all the typical ones I use in the summertime. In the wintertime, when I don't really have all those fresh, herbs, I'm either buying them, depending, not very often. We don't, because parsley sometimes, but I use a lot of dried spices in the wintertime. So this example of the dish I just did is a great example because, I got dried bay leaves. I have all sorts of dried herbs and spices from the garden, which I dried. Chili peppers that I dried. So it is very different depending on what I got in the backyard or what's available at the farmer's market, right?
Miss Castro is asking, what advice would you give to someone who wants to be a chef?
Advice for someone who wants to become a chef. So it's a complex question, and it's also a complex job. So, my advice is make sure you truly love what you're getting into, because you'll be doing it for the rest of your life. And I say that all the time because my mom, when I was really young, I was probably 12 or 13 years old. My mother asked me, you're going to have to start working soon. Like, don't, there's a period of time where you continuously asking mom or dad for money gets old, right? And so your parents are like, okay, you're going to start thinking about earning money. It doesn't just get handed to you. And so she said to me, she goes, whatever you decide to do, make sure you truly love it, because you'll be doing it for the rest of your life. And when you're young and you reflect on the rest of your life, that's a long time, right? You're like, I better think of something I really like. And within a very quick reflection, I thought of food, even at that age, because I had already been cooking at home, and I'd already been with my grandmother a lot and in the garden, and I loved eating. It was like, okay, it's going to be with food. So, make sure you really love what you're doing, because it's a tough job, and it's going to be part of your life, right? And I would say, make sure you're, wherever you go to work, in our industry, school is important, of course. Schools, like school when I was a student, like culinary school, is way different than it is now. Like they have technology now. They got incredible classrooms. They've like projected into the future, like from when I was in school. But pick a great school, pick a great place to work where you're going to learn, and that's the key. Just keep learning, and always remember, you're never ever going to stop learning. That's part of it, right? Don't let your ego get the best of you. Don't think that you're greater than anybody else. Don't get competitive, unless you want to be on a competitive competition. But there's also a humbleness to being competitive too, because if you lose, it's part of it, right? Can't get upset over it. So that's my advice.
Rob, what were some of the steps that you took to get where you were? Like, where did you start? From that conversation you had with mom, right? What did you decide to do? What were the small little things you did that eventually led to where you are?
So I got a job, believe it or not. So I have an interesting story because I went to go work in a restaurant when I was literally 13 years old. So my mom was like, okay, you know, I said I want to work in a restaurant, right? And there happened to be a diner. Are you guys all in Brampton? I think you might be in Brampton. So there's a diner called California. It might be California Sandwiches. Is it still there now?
I think so.
Across from the Walmart? I'm pretty sure it's there.
I think it's
So,
still there. I don't even know. Does anybody
California
know?
Sandwiches is at the corner of Main and Beauvert, I think.
Main and
Yes.
Bouvard, right across. You know what? I think it
The
might be
east
torn
side.
down now. There's a whole
Oh.
bunch of buildings now.
Well, I was there a few months ago and I saw it.
Oh,
Anyway, that was my first job, and I was a dishwasher. And my mom had to go to the job interview with the chef who was the owner, and he was like, you know, are you okay with your son working here? I need to make sure he has a parental guardian signing off on this. And my mom was like, yeah. So I would go work there Saturday morning and Sunday morning, early in the morning, like a 6 or 6:30 start time or 7 a.m. start time. And I would wash dishes for brunch. And I got to kind of like in between like washing dishes, I got to help the cook or the chef. And I would peel potatoes, I would cut tomatoes, I would do all sorts of things to help. And eventually, as time went on, I actually began cooking. And so that was kind of part of my upbringing. Like I got to help, and it was exciting for me to help. And so it's kind of one of those things where, you know, don't be afraid to submerge yourself in a job where, you know, you're not going to be a cook because you don't have the experience to be a cook. You know, you have to learn how to use a knife. You got to learn how to cook. If you just go and all of a sudden say, I want to be a cook one day, and you got no experience at it, chances are, you know, you're not going to be successful at it in that way. What you need to do is learn how to become that, and then take the next step to the next level, to the next level. So I went from the dishwasher to helping as a cook. Then I worked at another restaurant that was a little bit more fine dining. Then I went to culinary school, and then I worked. Then the job was to get a job in the city. So I got a job in the city at a restaurant called Grazie, right? And that was a huge part of you know, being into the professional world downtown, right? And again, I started to make pizzas, and I didn't know how to make pizzas before. And so I learned how to make pizzas. Then I got really good at making pizzas. And then you get paid more because you're really good at it. So it's kind of like, it's a progression. You got to go step by step. And you just gotta set goals for yourself. It's extremely important to set goals for yourself. And once you're in a position, think about what the next step is. Think about where you want to go in life. And for me, it was always about wanting to, you know, conceptualize and create and own restaurants, right? So now, flash forward, you know, I'm 41, and now I'm in a position where I just left the company I was with, and now I'm in a position where I got free reign, right? So COVID has been one of those things where it's extremely challenging for a lot of people, but for me, it's also been a very big pivoting point in my career and in my life to go and say, you know, what do I really want to do now? Because I have the ability and I have the opportunity now to do anything I want, right? Clean slate. And so that for me has been the most exciting thing ever.
Thanks, Chef Rob. A technical question. Do you use all-purpose flour, or can you use 000 flour? Could you just tell our students a little bit about the differences between those two types of flour?
Yeah, for sure. So the recipe I made is with semolina. Okay, semolina is a type of flour. But 00 is a type of Italian flour, and what that refers to is the 2 zeros refers to the amount of refinement in the flour. So it's very, very fine, right? All-purpose flour is something that's been kind of formulated that you can use it for bread, you can use it for pasta, you can use it for pastry. It's all-purpose, right? So if you're going to use a white flour for pasta, I would recommend probably a 00, but you can use an all-purpose. It's no problem. And you can experiment with all sorts of different flours to make pasta, right?
Thanks, Chef Rob. A question from one of our teachers, Mr. Fernandez. What is your favorite store-bought pasta sauce brand?
Store-bought favorite pasta. I would say Rusticella di Abruzzo is my favorite.
Rusticella di Abruzzo. That's the pasta sauce?
Oh, sauce, you said?
Sauce, yeah. He was asking for sauce.
I don't particularly have a favorite. I mean, my absolute favorite is not store-bought. It's the one that's like you make at home, the jar, right? If you make sauce when it's in season. But if you're gonna buy a canned or jarred, the one I used was Muti. That's a great one. Or just look for a good tomato that does not have any preservatives in it. It's just tomatoes and basil. That's the most important part.
Thanks, Chef Rob. Question from one of our students, Elena. What advice would you give for making your own recipes?
Making your own recipes. So what I like to do is, because I create recipes all the time, and people now pay me to create recipes for them. So basically what I do is I create a idea behind the recipe with a list of ingredients and how I think that they're going to work. And then when I go make it, I document exactly how I made it so that you don't have to go back and do it a second time if it turned out good. All you really need to do is make adjustments. So for example, if I'm going to do olive oil, garlic, tomatoes, lemon peel, and bay leaf, I'm going to write down as I make it 1 clove of garlic, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 500 mils of cherry tomatoes. I'm going to write it as I make it so that if it turns out good, or maybe you put a little too much olive oil and you want to put it down to 1 tablespoon instead of 2 tablespoons, you already documented it. So if you're going to create recipes from scratch, start before you actually make the recipe and write it out along as you go, and then that's easy.
Thank you, Chef Rob. Question from Miss Luke Cabral. Did you have a mentor?
Yes. So I mean, my mentor when I was in my younger days was Mark McEwen. Mark McEwen, he's the judge on Top Chef right now. And he was one of those guys that's extremely successful and very smart in business. And when you're, a chef has to wear a lot of different hats. He's got to be really good at cooking and knowing food and ingredients. He's got to be able to create recipes. He's got to be able to gauge what people want. But you also have to be very intelligent when it comes to business and managing money. So Mark was one of those guys that was just amazing at business and managing money. And, I worked for him for 10 years. So it was a long sort of educational process, and I'm still learning to this day, right? I push myself to learn at this point.
Great. Another question from Mr. DeChico. What's your favorite pasta dish to eat? Your personal favorite pasta dish?
So my personal favorite pasta dish is, in fact, pasta pomodoro. Okay, so tomato sauce with pasta is, for me, the greatest thing ever. It doesn't matter whether if it's meatballs, doesn't matter if it's you finish with Parmigiano on top, whether it's fettuccine or rigatoni. If it's a good tomato sauce, basil, right? My favorite. If it's a good tomato sauce and an amazing pasta, I could eat it all day long, lunch and dinner, doesn't matter.
Thanks, Chef Rob. Question from Miss Luke Cabral. Where has your love of food allowed you to travel?
So, I mean, I travel all over the world, and I'm a big, I'm a true food lover, right? So if I'm in, a country where it's my first time and the cuisine is very different, I will want to eat everything, right? I love to going to Italy. I go to Italy probably, pre-pandemic 2-3 times a year. But I mean, it doesn't matter if I'm in Thailand or Hong Kong or, the Caribbean. I look for places that are like just interesting and special and like things I need to try, right? I've eaten in, people's homes in the Caribbean where you go and there's someone cooking and it's for locals and people go and pay, and the woman that was there fed people. And I had one of the most amazing dinners there. And you're literally in someone's home, and it's just someone's home that she uses as a restaurant. And it was incredible. And I've eaten the craziest things in Hong Kong where, it was like, garage door. I don't recommend it. Okay. But I mean, like, you're off the beaten path and somebody opens a garage door and you're standing there and you're eating things that, are just insanely interesting. And, again, one of those things where you're off the beaten path and it's actually a restaurant. People go there if to go and eat there, and and you got contacts to get a table, and you go and it's just down an alleyway and there's a restaurant, right? So that's the kind of stuff I like. But it doesn't have to be all wild and crazy like that. Like, I mean, if I'm in Bali, I'm eating the local duck dish that's, with the rice that they're growing in the rice fields, with the amazing pesto that's not pesto, sorry. I think it's curry, but they make it with a mortar and pestle and they smash everything together. Wild stuff, man. Like, I love it. I love that kind of thing.
Awesome. Thanks, Chef. Another question from Miss Castro. How do you continue to grow your craft as a chef?
So continuously learning is kind of the thing, right? Continuously learning and being excited about creativity. Creativity is a huge thing. Staying creative, always being able to come up with new ideas, always trying to find a sense of improvement in everything you do. You gotta push yourself to keep going. Don't ever be stagnant. If you lose your sense of creativity, it can be a place that's not comfortable for me anyway, right?
How do you get inspired by certain dishes? So how do you know it's going to work in the restaurant? You've got this, you come up with such amazing dishes that you put on the menus in your restaurants. And how do you know they're going to work? What do you do? What's the process? Where do you learn those recipes that you put on that menu?
I mean, it's a lot of it now. At this point in my life, a lot of it is experience, right? A lot of it is experience, and a lot of it is just inspiration from things that I see, right? Like if I go to the farmer's market and I'm greeted with like wild leeks, for example, or garlic, it could just spark an idea in my mind. It's like, oh, this is what I'm going to do with these, right? So seeing things, touching them, smelling them, tasting them sparks ideas, right? And whether or not I'm writing them down or whether or not I'm purchasing those ingredients because I'm going to go make a dish, or whether or not I have people coming over and we're going to have dinner or something like that. It's the ingredients for me is always going to keep me driving to be creative, right?
Thanks, Chef Rob. I think that's a good place to end, this idea that ingredients inspire you and keep driving you. So I just want to say thank you, Chef Rob Gentile, for teaching us how to prepare this beautiful, authentic Italian cuisine. Grazie. And your passion for food and your success story is really a motivating force for our entire school community. So we're really grateful you're able to join us this morning and demonstrate how your love of food has shaped your life. One of our Catholic graduate expectations is to develop into caring family members who minister to family, school, parish, and the wider community through service. And I think you showed us there's no greater act of service than preparing food for other people. So I would encourage our students and our staff to try to prepare this great dish for their family, for their friends, as an act of kindness, which is one of our virtues for this month. Also, just want to say thanks to our principal, Ms. LaCicero, for supporting our Hospitality and Tourism SHSM. I also want to thank our awesome guidance counselor, Ms. Luke Cabral, for organizing this wonderful event for our students and for our school community. Furthermore, I want to recognize our exceptional hospitality teachers, Ms. DeSantis and Mr. Bazina, for developing our students' skills in the culinary arts. And I also want to give a shout out to our amazing hospitality and tourism SHSM students, Elena, Justin, Nicholas, Christine, Amabel, Daniel, Andrew, and Tavia. Thanks for your leadership today, and we wish you continued success in the culinary arts. We also have 2 upcoming events that our hospitality and tourism SHSM team are working on. One is a virtual visit to a farm where you can see where food comes from. And the second is exploring Toronto's famous cheese boutique. So if you'd like more information on these events, or if you want to sign up for the Hospitality and Tourism SHSM program, please talk to Miss Luke Cabral or myself or Miss DeSantis or Mr. Bazina. So I just want to wrap up by thanking everyone for joining us this morning. At this time, you are asked to proceed with your regularly scheduled class, and just wishing everybody a great day. God bless. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you, Chef Rob,
Thanks,
for coming
Mr.
out.
Ducado, for putting this event. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.